Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin, Congested Edition! I am still pretty sick, but, well, not very sick, but it's inconvenient. It's an inconvenient thing rather than a... Anyway, today I'm going to be showing you how to make this Polaris ring, which incorporates check spikes. Now, if you're not into the whole spike thing, and I completely understand, I also made a version without spikes, using pearl rounds instead. So it's nice, little bubbly, kind of real looking. It's cute, it's quick, it's simple. Great for gifts if you happen to know the ring size of the individual involved. But me, I am all about the spikes. So I'm going to show you how to do the spike version. If you want to do the simpler round version, all you have to do is replace the large spikes with 6mm rounds and the small spikes with 4mm rounds. That's all you gotta do. So for this project you will need size 11 seed beads, size 15 seed beads. I happen to be running low and I don't know what I'm going to run out of first, so I'm using those two. 8 4mm bicones. Now you can divide them 4 and 4 and use 2 different colors for each layer, or not. You don't have to, it's all up to you. 4 3mm bicones. This is an SS39 Chaton from Swarovski, but you can easily use it with an 8mm flatback rhinestone or something similar to that effect. 2 13x6 spikes. You can kind of use any size of spikes that you want as long as they're 6mm wide. These ones are also square, which kind of gives you a little bit of a different texture and a little bit more of a headache than round ones, but round or square should work. And then 8x5mm spikes. These are 2 of them. You will need 2 of them, of course. A size 12 needle, because it will give you a better time. So, let's get started. So we're going to be starting off by threading on an alternating pattern of 3 size 15 seed beads, a big spike, 3 size 15 seed beads, and a little spike. We're going to do that twice, so we end up with all 4 spikes used up. Pull it down so it ends up with a little bit of a tail. We're not really going to use the tail. Like that. Now what we're going to do is pass our needle back through all of these once more to form a loop. Like that, and the spikes will kind of flop around wherever they please. Just ignore them. We'll set them straight in the next few rounds. Now what we're going to do is tie an overhand knot with the working thread and the tail. Alright, so we end up with, once everything's pushed out of the way, a little star pattern like that. We're not going to be using the tail, so you can go ahead and get rid of that as you please. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is pass through the next spike bead over, which in my case is a small spike bead. Then I'm going to add on 1 11/0, 1 4mm, 1 11/0, and then pass to the next spike bead over, which would be a large one. Now we're going to repeat that all the way around, adding 1 11, 1 4mm, 1 11, and passing to the next spike bead, all the way around until we have 4 4mm bicones in each corner. So we end up with something like that. Next thing what we're going to do is pass up through the nearest 11O bead, and then through the size 4mm bead. Like that. We're going to add 2 size 15, 1 3mm bicone, and 2 size 15. Then we're going to pass to the next 4mm bicone, completely jumping over the spike. We end up with that, a 3mm in between the two 4mm. Gonna repeat that, adding 2 size 15 beads, a 3mm and 2 size 15s, passing to the next 4mm all the way around until you've done all 4. And you end up with this circle of 3 and 4mm beads on top of the spikes. Now what you're going to want to do is reinforce by passing through this entire circle once more. When you have finished, end up at a 3mm bead. Then what we're going to do is add 1 size 15, 1 size 11, and 1 size 15. Then pass to the next 3mm bead on the round. That, pull all the way through, and you will form a bridge across the 4mm bead and in between 2 3mm beads. Repeat that, adding 1 size 15, 1 11, and 1 size 15, jumping to the next 3mm all the way around until you have 4 things. Then you end up with something like that. Now what we're going to do is open up the gap a little bit and make sure our spikes are all pointing outside, and shove the little rhinestone inside. Then what we're going to do is kind of purse everything together and reinforce the round with the 3mm beads and the 11O beads, about 2 or 3 times to make sure it really cinches it tight. Alright, once you have properly secured your bead chaton in place, we're going to now move on and try to limit the movement of the spikes on the other side a little bit. Because as you can see, they kind of flop around and do whatever they please. I kind of like them both down, so you can even push them both up. But you're going to be playing with them, so if you're a fidgeter, this is a very, very nice ring to have. Because I am totally a fidgeter, and I'm just kind of playing with these all the time. Anyway, moving on. From here, I'm coming out of a 3mm bead, so I'm going to pass down through the 2 size 15s that end up in between the 3 and the 4mm bead. I'm going to go through the 4mm bead, down the size 11 bead, and through this set of 3 15 beads that is in between the spikes. We're going to be working with those and putting a little bit of a border on top. Alright. Now what you're going to want to do is take 6 to 8 size 11 seed beads and thread them on. And it's going to kind of depend on the size and shape of your spike. But if you got a 6mm, between 6 and 8 should be suffice. If it's too tight and you have too much thread showing, add more beads. If it's too loose, take some off. I've put 7 on because the square shape of these spikes kind of like something in the center. After I've done that, I'm going to thread through the set of 3 size 15s on the other side, so that we have a band sitting on top of the spike. Now what we're going to do is the same thing, but only adding 4 size 11 seed beads. Gonna have that form a frame over my small spike. I've added 4 beads, and I'm gonna pass through the next set of size 15 seed beads, if the knots will let me. There we go. So we have the frame on top of the small spike. Repeat that, adding 7 on the big one and 4 on the small one. And there we have it. All 4 of my spikes are covered with a seed bead frame. I'm currently coming out of a set of size 15 seed beads, and now in order to add the final 4mm bicones, I'm just going to pass through the set of 7 beads at the end of the spikes and stop there. So what I've done next is I'm going to add a 4mm bead, then I'm going to pass through the set of 4 seed beads coming off the small spike. But I'm going to add on another 4mm bicone and pass through the 7 beads across the next large spike. Repeat that until you've filled the other 2 gaps. And that is what we have on the bottom. Now we're going to start working on the ring band, and what we're going to do is bring our thread through the second bead in the next set of 4 seed beads. Because we're going to attach on a herringbone stitch for our band. That. So now what I'm going to do is add on 2 size 11 seed beads and then go downward through the 3rd size 11 seed bead and jump until I'm in the middle of the work. That's going to stack these 2 beads on top of that set of 2 beads. So what I'm going to do next is add 1 size 11 seed bead and pass back upwards towards the outside through the 2nd seed bead on this bead frame. Then I'm going to continue upwards through one of the beads on this column to start off my herringbone stitch. Then we're going to start off normal herringbone by adding on 2 size 11 seed beads, passing downward through the next bead in the column, passing back up through the 2nd and 3rd bead in order to turn our thread, and we repeat over and over until we have the length of our ring band that we desired. Now, to make it a little easier to join the threads, start a new thread on the other side so that we have a few less tension areas and issues here. If there's too many knots and stuff, things might break, and that'll make people cry, and I don't want to make people cry. But anyway, continue under normal herringbone stitch until you have the length of the ring band that you want. Alright, so this is what I have ended up with. I have 2 strap pieces coming out of both sides where the small spikes are. Now all I'm going to do is join the 2 together, and what I'm going to basically do is a herringbone stitch pretending that the opposite side is the beads that I'm going to be adding on. So I'm starting out from this side, and I'm going to thread on this bead, then move back over to this bead, and connect the opposite bead. That's a lot of words. So, I'm going to bring my 2 pieces together, like this, so my thread is coming out of this bead here. So I'm going to join this bead to it, passing downwards. Then I'm going to pass up the next bead on that column, then pass back down the final bead. And that completes the join, but we would probably want to reinforce it by passing through those beads once more, so that we can kind of fix that gap there. So all I'm going to do is my thread's coming out from this bead. Alright, so we're going to kind of fix this gap by passing up through the next column, through this one, and a couple more beads forward just cuz. Pull tight. We're going to go and pass downward the opposite direction through the other column, passing through that gap and a couple of other beads. Now we've kind of cinched the gap. It's pretty seamless, and you can't really tell where the join was. In order to reinforce that, we're just going to kind of go up and down a few more times, tie a knot, and cut our threads. Another thing you might want to do is reinforce the connection between here either after or before you start adding your strap, only because that's probably where it's going to break the most, so you'll want to put as much strength as you can in there. And that is the final ring. Pretty quick to throw together. Really great for gifts and such, if you happen to know a person's preference and their ring size. You can also kind of turn these into earrings using a similar technique. You just take the little loop behind one of the spikes, either the large one or the small one, just put a little seed bead loop and turn them into earrings, make tiny little pendants, what have you. And don't forget, if you don't like the spikes, you can also make a simpler version with just pearls. Instead, 6mm for the large spike, and 4mm for the small spike. So, let me know what you guys think of this tutorial as I figure out what I'm doing with my hands. Yes. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had a few requests for more rings. Please let me know what you would like me to do in the comments down below. I kind of like the rings. I kind of like how they fit together, and I just don't do rings very much for some reason, but I really got attached to these. But in any case, that is all for me right now in this edition of Lessons with Odin. I hope you enjoyed, and of course, if there is anything that I need to be trying out right now, feel free to leave me a comment down below, and I will see you next time.